Shut up and sit down.
By all means, go for it. Have fun. Just leave me alone.
People are coming together more and more and more and more as the government has been failing us more and more.
I'm against being shitty to people.
You can't research your way into understanding somebody.
One way or another, I'd rather have the fight now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Fight for Liberty show. I forgot to adjust my camera before we started, so there's that. Today, we have a really awesome guest, a really awesome episode. I'm super excited. First, I'm going to tell you real quick about one of our awesome sponsors, Nug of Knowledge. I talk about them in almost every video. You can go onto their website, nugofknowledge.com, and check out all of the great cannabis products that they have. They have some THC flower, CBG flower. We've got Delta 8 THC cartridges. Lots of awesome stuff over there at Nug of Knowledge. Use promo code F4L to get 10% off your first purchase. And you help me out. You help the network out. You help other awesome libertarians that you know and love out. And you also get to get high. So it's a win-win-win all the way around. So go on over to Nug of Knowledge and check that out. Today, we are joined by one of my absolute favorite libertarians. He was our vice presidential nominee. He is a hero on every airplane that he is ever on. And he is also really awesomely a very consistent contributor on Kennedy, who's one of my, the only mainstream media that I watch. So the one, the only, Spunk Cohen is here on the show.
It's me. Thank you. It was me.
It
was me. I was almost there. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to this special early worm episode of Fights and Fights and Schmidt for Liberty. Is that like a widespread thing? Everyone knows that I'm the hero on every flight that I'm on.
I don't know if that's a widespread thing, but I want it to be a widespread thing.
I want people to know me as that. I'm sick of Tash's husband. I now want to be the hero of every flight. So I typically pick the exit row when we're picking our flights. I fly, if you count each segment, I fly usually 4 times a week. You know, whatever 2 flights it takes to get to wherever I'm going. Sometimes 3 because I'm in Myrtle Beach and we don't have direct flights to anywhere. No. If we're doing an event in Charlotte, I'll be there in 1 flight. That's about it. And then however many flights it takes to get back. So usually about 4 flights a week. I'm on a lot of flights. And because of that, I have all these reward points. So I'm high up in the American Airlines reward tier, which means that when they cancel the flight, they put me in a hotel. So that's been helpful in the past few the past couple months. But it also means that I get preferred seating. So I get to pick my seating and I don't have to pay extra for any of the main cabin seating. So I always pick the exit row because it typically has more leg room. And also technically it's also typically in the middle of the plane, which means that there's less turbulence because you're at the wing where it stabilizes, but that's a whole other thing. So I picked the exit row, and for anyone who's ever sat in the exit row, twice when they first let you on the plane, and then this other time when they make a whole big deal of it, they're like, in the event of an emergency, are you ready and able to save everyone's life? And some of them are really, and really all they ask you to do is to open the door and to help people get out if they're unable to do so themselves. And to please read the thing. I've never read that. Actually, one time I read it on one plane. And so they always ask you that, like, do you agree to do this if this plane crashes, which hasn't happened in like 13 or 14 years in the US or some ridiculous thing. And so every time I look them in the eye, because they want you to say yes. And I look them in the eye and I say, I will not rest until every person on this airplane is safe at home with their families. And I try to ramp it up a little each time. I started doing this during the campaign, and every time they do this, every once in a while they'll say, actually, so during when there was no one else on the plane, like during the COVID and the lockdowns last year, when like no one else was flying, they would just like roll their eyes and go, okay. Now they're like, I need a verbal yes. As though I would say that and then not help everyone if it actually came to it, right? Like,
Right.
my saying yes is the difference between whether I actually mean it or not. But yeah, so I pledge to save hundreds of people's lives multiple times a week.
Nice. Nice. I actually got like randomly upgraded on my last flight. I was flying back from Mexico, and I just bought like the cheapest ticket. So I was like way in the back in a middle seat. And I go back to my seat, and there's this random kid in my seat. And I just kind of like, I'm just kind of standing there awkwardly because I don't really know how to handle that situation, about how to go up to like an 8-year-old child and be like, bitch, you in my seat, move.
Right.
And there just happened to be like a flight attendant that was like handling the person that was sitting in front of them or something. So he just looked up at me and was like, what seat? And I told him, and he looked, saw the kid, looked at me, looked back at the kid, and he was like, actually, do you have a problem being in an exit row? And I was like, hell no, please.
No. Oh, it's
and he
way
took
better.
me down. Well, there was apparently no one on that flight wanted to be in the exit row. There was only there was both exit rows, and there was only, I think, 3 total people in like all of those 12 chairs.
Yeah.
Super weird.
So they didn't want to answer the question.
Apparently,
because they'll make you get off that out of that seat if you won't answer the question. Like, if you won't say yes, I am ready and willing and able to assist, blah 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 blah, then they're like, you got to go. Now that's never. There was one time I've never had anyone say no on any of these flights, but I did have one lady who was like, wait, so what is it exactly I have to do? And he said, ma'am, please just say a verbal yes. And she's like, yes. And then he walked off because it was like, nothing's going to happen. Like, just say yes so we can go and fly the plane. Like, this is a booked flight. I don't want, like, you were supposed to read the thing if you had any questions. Because he said that if you have any questions, read the thing. So she's like, what does it say I have to? So, lady, you don't have to do anything. Go to bed, go to sleep. And you have plenty of leg room. We'll wake you up when we get there. Like, don't worry about it. Just say yes so we can all go about our destination. The crazy thing is, from what I've heard from people who've actually been in plane crashes, they're like, they don't really want you to, they want you to knock the door off and jump out and get out of everyone's way. Like, that's really all you're doing is opening a door and yeeting it out the window. Like, that's really it. There's no like this whole help. There's no one. Everyone's scrambling off the plane. It's like in a water landing. The plane's slowly sinking, and we're all trying to get off so we don't die in a plane. No one's. Oh well, you play hell. It's everyone get the hell out of the way. Like, I mean, you see. So if you, for those who've been on airplanes that you land and everyone's trying to get off. When you think of how crowded that is, and that's just everyone being impatient, they want to get there and wait at baggage check for another 20 minutes. Think about if you don't want to die on the plane. No one wants help. They want you to get out of their way. So
what I'm confused about is why it only in the emergency circumstance that, like you said, hasn't happened in a while, do they actually try to use more than one door? Like, why can't we do that more often?
Wow. Just knock everything open. Get out. Get out of the plane.
How much more fun would that be if every time that you got off a plane, you got to bust out the exit door and slide down the slide?
Oh, go down the slide and everything?
Yeah.
As long as they can, like, I guess, deflate it and put it back up, I don't really care. That would be cool. That's funny. No, that would be a good. It would. Although I'll tell you something. Everyone, it would be a mad panic dash. It's like the one thing that kind of keeps everyone in control is they're like, where are you going? I can tell when people are new, like they don't fly often, because when I'm in the exit row, I don't even get up until it's like maybe two rows in front of me start moving, because I'm like, we're just sitting here. And guess what, guys? Watch this next group, they're gonna get up and they're gonna get their bags and they're gonna like, it's not it's not your turn and you get to just like run out, because there's still people walking out behind, like in front of you. Like, just take it easy.
Yeah. The only thing
tuned into the Fite and Cohen
how to fly.
How to Fly with David and Spike. Noontime special.
All right, so I guess I'll go get into my first like really serious question then. So with all of your traveling, I'm sure you've eaten at a lot of great restaurants and especially breakfast themed restaurants. So I'm curious, which is worse, IHOP or Denny's?
Denny's is arguably the worst restaurant on the planet, and as a chain. And it's not necessarily that their food is the worst, it's that they're blatant liars. And I'm going to explain what that means to all of you. When in June of 2018, I go to the Denny's in Wilmington, North Carolina. It doesn't matter which Denny's it is, they all have the same menu. And they give me a menu, and I'm looking at it and trying to figure out what I want to eat. And one of the menu items is wild Alaskan salmon. And it has a picture of it. And the wild Alaskan salmon was like $11.99 or $12.99 for the meal. So for anyone who knows anything about salmon, they already know what the problem is. For the rest of you, I'm going to explain it. First of all, the picture of this salmon, it was like, I don't even have anything around me it's like a pinkish white. So it might have been salmon, but it certainly wasn't Alaskan. Like Alaskan salmon, if you look at the red of this Spike Cohen and David Fite, it's at least that red and sometimes even deeper red. It's that red after it's cooked, and it's like a blood red, like a almost like a blood orange red before it's cooked. So already I knew they were lying. But then it really, I because I'm OCD, I dwelled on it. And I realized, why did you do this? It's obvious this isn't wild Alaskan smoked salmon. And then here's what really got me, folks. $12.99, no one thinks that you're going to be able to offer wild Alaskan salmon as a meal for that price. But it's worse than that. Your Denny's. No one expects something like wild Alaskan salmon at Denny's. This is not a value add. People go to Denny's, because they're drunk, they want, or it's late. I was there at 2 a.m. because I've been at a dance thing all night, a salsa dance event, and I went with my wife and 2 friends of ours. People go there because they're the only thing open, or they want to get some wings or some breakfast, or they just whatever. Usually they're trying to just escape a hangover or get over a hangover or sober up or whatever. There's no value add here. They're just, so by saying they have wild Alaskan salmon, they're literally just lying for the sake of lying. And it's just, I told the waitress, and she said, I can talk to the manager. I said, you don't need to, because he's been told the same lie you have. And, you've just been conditioned to believe that this is wild Alaskan salmon. She's like, I can look at the container. I said, the container's going to say wild Alaskan salmon. It's a gigantic, cynical lie. And I encouraged her to walk out with me, but she wouldn't.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
So you think that the lying about the salmon trumps any bad quality that IHOP has?
To me,
I would probably agree.
To me, it's about trust. Mm-hmm. And also, I like that at IHOP they have like 17 different syrups. I like that. I think that's I get the gimmick. It's gimmicky, but it's really all. I don't know if any of them are actual syrup, but maybe they are. I don't know. But regardless, I like the gimmick. It's true to what's like because we're international, these are all the different syrups around the world, and it's not. It's just different flavors. But it's the whole. It's like, because we're international. Like, I like that. I like a nice gimmick. But yeah. But this goes past gimmick, and it's not even to brand. Denny's. Denny's, where you can get eggs and pancakes and wings and a $2, $3 quesadilla or whatever, and wild Alaskan salmon. And if you do reviews of wild Alaskan salmon, we can make this whole episode about wild Alaskan salmon at Denny's, because this is point of contention.
I'm
I've been
aware.
fighting this for quite some time, and I encourage all of you to join me on Twitter by routinely adding Denny's and asking them to #stop the lies. That's what I've been trying to do. I've called them, I've emailed them, I've been pretty insufferable about it because and if I do ever run for national office again, I will make a point of it being a major part of my campaign, really any office, a campaign platform, that Denny's needs to stop lying about this, and we're gonna shine light on it.
That is what people really want from a presidential candidate, is someone that will call out the bullshit of a large
Denny's
faux diner chain that, you know, will really stick it to the man. So I think that would be a great message for you.
I'm sick of big diners' lies, and I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of you know, oh, look at us, we're your hometown store or hometown restaurant. No, you're not. You're Denny's. And also, you know, don't lie about what's on your menu. It makes me sick.
Except you might get accused of some foul play there because, you know, if you're shitting on Denny's but you're bought out by the Waffle House lobby, you know, that's kind of conflict of interest.
There has been a very, very scurrilous and disgusting series of accusations against me that the reason that I campaigned during the Libertarian Party's nomination contest on a platform of, among other things, putting a Waffle House on every corner, that was some kind of double dipping on my part as the chair, the all-star special of the Libertarian Party Waffle House Caucus. But I think it's important for everyone to know that this had nothing to do with that. It was not about the potentially trillions of dollars I would make in doing this. It was about jobs, and it was about food availability. If every building on every corner has to be torn down, whatever's there, home, business, daycare, school, hospital, whatever, and replaced with a Waffle House, just imagine the amount of construction jobs alone before you get into all the other jobs related to that. I mean, that's a gigantic stimulus economy spending there. Big boost to jobs. And then the availability of good-ish cheap food would help to stabilize and lower food prices. And also because of the Waffle House Index and their ability to be better prepared for storms. This part's actually true. Better prepared for storms than even FEMA is. This would lead to very good emergency preparedness across the country. We'd never have to worry about a natural. Yeah. And
that's
so
a really
when
good point.
Yellowstone what is it? Old Faithful has its super eruption and whatever that is with the volcano, we'll all be okay.
I'll be okay.
So that's what that was about. It has nothing to do with me becoming the richest person on earth. And it's a disgusting allegation that I would even care about that. I don't. Money's not even important to me.
Not at all.
No.
It's so that's actually it's a good segue talking about the VP race and your platform, because I want to talk about a little bit about how you got brought into that race and then what it was like to be running alongside the great Vermin Supreme.
Vermin Supreme is incredible. I've been following him since either 2008 or 2012 when I first heard of him, because you see there's a guy in New Hampshire every election cycle during the primaries. He's got a boot on his head. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then find out more about him. He actually is using this as a way to try to spread a serious message that these people are all lying to you. They're all performing. You know they're performing. You know they're lying. You're literally trying to figure out whose lies you find the most comforting and you agree with the most. So you can say, well, at least he said he was going to do this, or at least she said she was going to do that. And it's like, but you knew it was BS. Like, you knew it was a lie, right? So he's like, all right, well then I'll be the most entertaining and tell the most glorious lies. I'm going to give you free energy by harnessing the zombies. I'm going to give everyone free ponies. I'm going to give everyone, a toothbrush. And then it turns out he has a book called I, Pony, which is a warning from the future about why he should never be elected. And the underlying tale behind it, and if you read, it's a very intense book. It's a very intense book. Don't let your kids read it, even though it has drawings in it. You don't want them to see those drawings. But
I've never heard of this book, and
iPony.
Very...
Never heard of iPony?
No, how? Okay. I don't know how no one's told me about this.
iPony is a dystopian future tale about what happens when Vermin Supreme becomes president. And so, for example, everyone's going to get a free pony. He's not going to do that by increasing the number of ponies. He's going to do that through a mass culling of humans. Many of them are going to turn into zombies, and so they're going to try to harness them for power. But that blows up in everyone's face too. And the whole premise behind this book, the entertainment and the I can't believe I'm reading this. The premise is politicians' promises and plans lead to disaster because they have no idea what they're doing, but they're using the force of law to force everyone into this arrangement because they tried to promise it to people. So the best thing that can happen is if a politician says, I'm going to do this, and then they just don't. They just forget it. But that's probably the best thing, because if they actually try to do it through central planning, they're going to destroy everything. So this is an inherently, libertarian. It's a weird way of presenting it, but I mean, Vermin's that kind of guy. It's a dystopian tale that's the underlying message is the same as his campaigning. Stop electing liars and stop voting for people that are, I'm going to give you everything in the world. No, they're not. They're going to just ruin everything in the process. So I just thought that was incredible. And so I've been following him for a while. And then when he sprinkled glitter or confetti on that politician and said, I'm making him gay. And just the whole thing, I'm like, this guy has decided not to take this seriously at all. But in doing so, he's really sending out this message that this whole system is bullshit. Like I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this program, but
of course,
it's gosh darn BS. It's a hootenanny, is what it is. And I've been fascinated by this guy. And then in 2019, he announced he was running for the Libertarian Party nomination. At first I'm like, no, he's gonna do the thing. And then it's like, no, he's serious. He has a campaign team. He wants to be the nominee. He believes that he'll be able to, as a actual serious candidate, use his way of messaging to bring people in. And I'm like, I'm scared. And so, but I kept following it. And then I had him on my show. And after talking with him and after seeing his other interviews, I thought, this could work. Like this could potentially, the Libertarian Party doesn't get attention. Like we saw that last year with me and Joe, even with Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, two former governors, two former Republicans. They have all this Beltway media clout. They're calling in every favor they have. And they were able to get 3% of the vote. Not even 5%, not even 1 out of 20 people. Then, me and Joe, who we didn't have the Beltway clout and all of that stuff, we literally just hit the ground running and went on bus tours and went around the country and got in front of as many people as possible. And we get 1.3%, 1.2%, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know that in this environment that any libertarian could get more than, say, 4 or 5. Let's even say we get some celebrity libertarian, they get 6, 7%. And, and more importantly, if you're not bringing people into why they should vote Libertarian to begin with, we got a bunch of Gary Johnson voters. How many of them stuck around afterwards? Not a lot, because we weren't building a movement. So I could start to see it. I thought, Vermin's a very odd way to do this, but maybe that's what we need. And so and so I said, okay, I'm staying officially neutral, but I can see how this will work. And so then Vermin. Then Vermin came down to the South Carolina convention, and me and my co-owner of Muddy Waters Media, Matt Wright, shared a Airbnb with him and his Southeast coordinator, because he had a Southeast coordinator. Like, it was a serious campaign. He had one of the most well put together teams of anyone running for the nomination, which was the most incredible thing. He had like 20 people on like a full-time volunteer team.
Didn't he have the most put together team in the primary? I mean, I guess maybe Hornberger might have had something better, but I think he had a bigger staff than anyone else.
He had the biggest team. Hornberger certainly had a lot of great coordination through the Mises Caucus, obviously. Right. But in terms of a dedicated team, I think that Vermin's was the largest. I would say it would either be between Vermin and Jacob. But we also, like, the Team Supreme raised like close to, I think, $200,000 during the primary or whatever we call it, the nomination contest, selling merchandise. And I think so anyway, so after we hung out in South Carolina, like a week or so later, he and his team reached out to me and said, how'd you like to be Vermin's VP? And I'm like, wait, I gave every reason that I shouldn't, because I never considered doing such a thing. And I'm like, well, first of all, why do you want me? And they're like, well, you get it, and you're good at explaining our beliefs, and so we can play this sort of, good, this sort of, serious guy, clown guy. Vermin can be the one telling the jokes, and you can come in and be like, that's right, Vermin, and then explain what it is he's saying to normies, and to people, or not even to normies, but people that don't quite get that. They don't get that there's something past the immediate satire they're looking at. And they said, and I said, yeah, but I'm an ANCAP. Like, I'm pretty far on the right, and I know Vermin's more of kind of a market anarchist. He calls himself a rainbow anarchist, but basically like a market anarchist / mutualist type thing. Yeah. He's like, yeah, it balances the ticket out. And I'm like, okay. And so so we went through this whole thing. We were like, basically trying to give every reason why he should pick someone else. And it eventually reached a point where I'm like, I was a real jerk to my girlfriend in the 8th grade, and I had another girl call her to break up with her. And they're like, well, that's terrible, but you were also in the 8th grade, and we're not going to hold that against you. And I'm like, well, I did apologize. And she's like, okay, well, as long as you apologize. Like, I'm like trying to tell them, like, I was arrested once for whatever. And they're like, we've all been arrested. And I'm like, all right. I once did a website, and they're like, we were all strippers. I'm like, this is the wrong team to vet me. Like this is the wrong group for me to decide if I'm politically palatable. So anyway, all this to say that I joined, and ultimately, the crazy thing was, what ultimately kept Vermin from getting the nomination was what Vermin said from the beginning. If the party, he said, I'm presenting a radical departure from what anyone has ever proposed for a serious run for president. I'm literally going to put a boot on my head and walk around with a gigantic toothbrush and act like a giant buffoonish clown for 6 months, 5 months, however long we have to campaign. And I'm going to have someone with me who's going to be, engaging in some of the silliness, but then immediately shifting to, telling people about liberty. And if you're cool with that, we'll get way more votes than any other ticket is going to get. And I do believe we would have gotten way more votes and way more attention. There's no way the media could not have paid attention to the fact that the third largest political party in the country elected or nominated for the top of the ticket a self-styled wizard from the future who's going to give everyone ponies. And like, there's no way they couldn't, even just to deride it. They had to have given us attention. And in the midst of that, we could have reached so many more people. But what Vermin said is, you're going to be the party of the guy with the boot on his head, not just in this election, but for quite some time. You have to be okay with that. And you have to be willing to pivot from it, because we're not all going to be out here being clowns. The vast majority of us want to be serious candidates, right? So you have to have that pivot, because they're inevitably going to be like, what about Vermin Supreme? What about the guy with the boot on his head? And you have to either go, oh man, that guy is great. When he talks about ponies, he's, it's a perfect example of blah, blah, blah. And whatever it is you want to talk about. Or you go, oh God, I hate that guy. I wish we had never run him. I want to run a serious campaign. I want to talk about blah, blah, blah. You have to pivot. Whatever your pivot is, you have to do it. You can't just say, I don't want to talk about that, which is how some chose to do it, and that's not smart. But he said, if you aren't willing to do that for the next few election cycles, not just this one, don't pick me. Yep. And so the delegates decided that, and I talked to a lot of people. They loved Vermin. They loved what he was doing. They're glad he's part of the movement. They didn't want that at the top of the ticket. And he was, he completely respected that. And, he's still doing incredible stuff. I'm actually going to be with him in Montgomery, Alabama. We're doing a press conference and rally for justice to try to highlight some of the absolute nightmares that are happening in Alabama right now with certificate of need laws and criminal justice problems. And how they're, instead of allowing for there to be more options on the ballot so that their terrible nonsense they've put together can be dismantled and replaced with a viable alternative, they're fighting to keep everyone else off the ballot, including the Libertarian Party. And, he's coming down on his own dime to talk to people about that. And I think that's incredible. So, I'm glad he's in the movement, but the delegates made their choice and we both respected it.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited for that event. I'm also possibly going to be there.
Ooh.
So
you should come. You should come.
You should come. I will be seeing you this weekend in Columbus for sure.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's right, because I'm going to be in Columbus, Ohio for the 2021 Libertarian Party of Ohio Conference. And then on Sunday, I'm speaking at the Accountability Now Ohio press conference and rally. We're doing some kind of rally and press conference thing.
Nice.
Yes.
And also, if you guys want to go through an escape room with Spike Cohen, reach out to Chrissy Witchers, because that's a thing that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be trapped in a room with this man, and it's going to be fun.
We're going to get out together. If for no other reason that eventually they let you out. if you can't make it. Although
I've always wondered that, like, how long can you make it last? Because, like, there's an argument of, like, you want to, like, get your money's worth out of it. So, maybe you kind of go a little bit slower, and like, could you just spend like 12 hours in the escape room if it takes you that long to get out? Like, what?
No, it's timed. So there's actually a timer, or at least the ones I've done, there's a timer. And I think you can actually pay for, I think there are ones that are like 1 hour and ones that are like 2 hours. And the ones that are 2 hours are more complex and have more stuff you have to do. So you can pay for more time, but it's time, and you're looking at it, and someone over the speaker will sometimes remind you. Now, often, if you're close, they'll start giving you hints. So I've always escaped from every escape room I've been in, but I'd be because I'm the ideal person, right? Like I everything I ace, I win at everything I do, except running for vice president. But I came in third.
It's not bad,
and I got the nomination.
You did,
which that was the only one that was really possible, honestly. So I mean, and then I did that, and I was as surprised as anyone else. But I aced the escape rooms because I nail everything. Hey Spike, throw an opening pitch at a baseball game. All right, I'll throw a heater down the middle and pitch a shutout. That's what I do. But with the escape room, I would be lying if I said that there weren't a couple like hints that our group was given. But we get out of there. We'll get out of there. Anyone who's coming with me to the escape room, we're gonna get out of there together.
Right.
We
won't need any of those pesky hints. We got this.
No, God, no. We're gonna go in there and be like, just take that key. We're out of here. That's not how it works. But we're going to go in. I will not rest. I'm gonna treat this like an airplane. I will not rest until every single participant in the escape room with me is safe at home, tucked into bed with their families. And I know that's a commitment, because some people don't have families and some people don't have beds. And we'll get that specific. We will find you a family. We will get you a bed, and we'll get you right in there with them. That's
so going into
it's a really comprehensive escape room.
Yeah. So going into the nomination,
Yes.
where's your confidence level? As far as like, did you think going into the convention that you might leave the VP nominee? Was that like in your head, or was it kind of a shock like it was for Joe?
So, so by the I wasn't gonna say it. By the actual day of, I was fairly confident I was going to get it because I had multiple people who were like, "We've done whip counts. You're gonna be like third or fourth ballot," and sure enough, I was. I think it was third ballot. And I also had talked with Ken Armstrong. Actually, it was that day that I talked with him, and I was like, "So you want to do a thing like if whichever one of us gets eliminated first, that we endorse each other. Whichever one of us gets eliminated first endorses the other one." And Ken was like, "I was going to do that anyway," and I'm like, "Yeah, me too." So now we know it. Yeah. So I felt pretty confident that going in, because at that point Ken was the Prague Caucus nominee for vice president, and I'm like, all right, so if I go down first, I'll endorse Ken, and he can have it. And I think he would have done it. I think, can you imagine Ken as the VP candidate? I think Ken would have done a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah.
I love Ken. Ken's a little bit more on the moderate side policy wise, but in terms of like relatability and getting the message out there, and he's still a very principled libertarian. And I love him and Don. I love him.
And you can't not listen to him when he talks. Like, he has just one of the most commanding presences, and then the voice on top of it.
The voice. I'm Ken. I can't even try in hurting my throat to try to make that voice. And neither can anyone but him. I did a debate with him and Larry Sharp. And I remember it was for the Mises Caucus, and afterwards in their group they had a poll of who do you think won it, and I won the poll. But in the comments, people were going, Ken's voice won the debate, and they're like, or they'll be like, Spike won the debate, or Larry won the debate, or Ken won, whoever they thought won the debate. But more importantly, we need Ken to narrate the campaign. Whoever wins, he needs to be the narrator. I'm like, I actually don't disagree with that. So no, I love Ken, but so no, going in that day, I was fairly confident that unless I did something stupid, that I was, I was going to get it. And but it was every day before. So I went into, keep in mind, I went into this as the proposed running mate of the guy with the boot on his head. Okay, there are pictures of me on the internet looking serious and posing with Vermin also looking serious in New Hampshire, where he's wearing a boot and I'm holding a pony's head on a stick. And like, this was a real thing. And I remember like when I went to Tasha, when I went to my wife with this, and I was like, yeah, Vermin, wants me to be his VP running mate. And she's like, oh, that'll be fun. You'll have fun going around being silly with him. And I said, yeah, okay, but if I got the nomination, here are the things that could happen. And she's like, you're running with Vermin Supreme. And I'm like, it could happen. And she's like, sure. Yeah, because I wouldn't have done it if she had been like, no, I don't want you to do it. But she's like, yeah, no, go have fun for a few months. And I'm like, all right, but I'll be on a 50-state tour, and people will love you. I said everything that would happen because everyone who meets Tasha falls in love with her. I'm like,
she's amazing.
Love you, and people are going to want to know about you, and they're going to want you to go places. They're going to be flying you around. Literally, I told her this like November of 2019. Okay. I told her all this stuff was going to happen. And if I get it, she's like, and it's a long-term thing, even after the campaign, they're going to be like, please stick around, blah, 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 blah. Don't leave us like every other libertarian presidential and vice presidential candidate. And she's like, you're running with Vermin. I'm like, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. They could pick me. And she's like, and especially going into it, she's like, well, they're not going to pick you now. You had a pony head on a stick. I'm like, it's a plot device. Anyway, so and I kept waiting for the shoe to drop. So, I'm like, someone else is going to come in who's better, more well-known than me. And that's going to be it, So I said, what I'm going to do, if nothing else, separate from my saying why I think Vermin is the ideal pick in this cycle, at the very least, a cycle where we're bound to not get any attention. is I'm going to present a different way of doing this. I am going to go to some conventions, but I'm also going to do like college campus tours online and in person. I'm going to do door knocking tours and housing projects. And Jacob Hornberger actually joined me one of the times that we did it. I'm going to show libertarians this is how we get the message out there. Like and I'm not going to wait to be the nominee to do it. I'm going to go to the New Hampshire primaries and interact with, to this day, that's the most number of people I've ever interacted with, was during the New Hampshire primaries. Imagine if our nominee was doing that kind of thing. But anyway, whole other subject. So but anyway, so in doing that, but I thought I'm going to show up and I'm going to be like, hey, everyone, we're going to go back in time and kill baby Woodrow Wilson in addition to baby Hitler. And I thought people would be like, oh, that's funny. Yeah, he made some good points about messaging. So anyway, who are we going to pick for our VP candidate? And instead, they started like coalescing around me. And I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, all right, well, but eventually, this was, January, February of 2020. I'm like, at some point, big names are going to come in. And then Larry Sharp came in. I'm like, well, there we go. Larry Sharp's the most popular libertarian in the party. I'll just, he'll probably get it. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to, do my damnedest. We're going to do debates. We're going to do whatever. And then I continued to pull ahead of Larry. And people thought I won it wasn't actually a debate. It was like a town hall, but people thought I won that, whatever that means. And I'm like, okay. And then Justin Amash gets into the race. I'm like, there we go. Justin Amash is going to come in and probably win the thing first ballot because he's Justin Amash. And I can't imagine he's going to want to be paired with Vermin Supremes, whatever. He's going to do what Gary Johnson did to Larry Sharp. Larry was the front runner for the VP race. And, Gary comes in and says, nah, pick this guy instead, who no one really knows because he's my bud. And that's what Justin Amash is going to do. He's going to come in and say, like, pick, I don't know, Mark Sanford or something like that. Whoever he would have as his running mate. I don't think he's going to be like, yeah, you guys pick your own person. So that's going to end that. Then he drops out. And so and when my wife realized what had happened was when she was listening to me calling all the delegates, because my background's in cold calling and sales. So I'm like, all right, so what do I got to do? I got to get 500 and some odd delegate votes. So I go to all the different state affiliates and our team leads in the different states if we had one, or in the region if we had one in every region, and said, who are the delegates that are a hard no for me and Vermin? Like not maybe, like hard no. And they're like, all right, we got about 250, 300 hard no's. I'm like, all right, I'll call them first. So I called them, and then I'm like, who are the maybes? And who, whatever, and worked my way there. And my wife and I realized what was happening when I would call hard no's, and by the end of the call, they either were supporting me, or sometimes me and Vermin, or at the very least, they had a favorable opinion of me. Whereas when they first, when I first called them, they're like, yes, what do you want? And I do believe, I certainly can't take all the credit, but I will take some credit for the fact that Vermin did so well all the way to the final ballot. So all that to say, that's ultimately when so it was in like early May that I'm like, I'm the front runner. And at this point, I don't think that's going to change, but I kept waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, I'm like, all right, something's going to happen, and that'll be okay when it happens. I will have made my point and blah, blah, blah. And then the shoe's going to drop was in the actually, I guess the second to final shoe's going to drop was in the debate, the actual debate, the one that Jim Turney hosted, that's on YouTube, between me and Larry and Ken. And after that, I'm like, I think I might have won that. And then I looked at the comments, and everyone's like, Spike won that, Spike won that. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening. And then after Vermin lost and Joe got it, I thought, well, maybe I won't get it now. But I started, people were reaching out to me and said, we did a whip count after the fact. You're still in people are saying Jorgensen Cohen, and I'm like, okay, all right. So then I got it. So I had it was weird. I went in that day fairly confident, but literally every day before I was waiting for the shoe to drop.
Nice. Yeah, because you had every endorsement other than the Prags, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Or like
yeah.
the important one. You had the Mises and the Radical, and obviously the Waffle House
Caucus. Well, yeah. Actually, no. The Waffle House Caucus, I said we were staying neutral because I didn't want to be seen as, whatever. Because they were like, we should do a poll. I'm like, no, we're not. Because if I win it, it's going to be, oh, well, of course, that's Spike's Caucus, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, this is not, we don't do endorsements. This is this is the anti.
Sir, this is a Waffle House
Caucus. Yeah, this is a Waffle House. Like, we're just talking about waffles and donkeys for some. I forget what the donkeys are about. But anyway, so we there was a reason for the donkeys, but I forget. But we still talk about them. So anyway, so all that to say, I just it was the Mises Caucus, the Radical Caucus, a bunch of people, various prominent libertarians, elected officials endorsed me. I didn't get the Prague nomination. I came in, I think I came in third for that. The Audacious Caucus was a different time. Audacious Caucus was going to endorse me, but one member of the nomination committee was losing their gourd, so they decided not to nominate anyone. But yeah, different time. But yeah, so it was pretty much it was.
It's crazy how much has changed in 2 years.
Because yeah. Yeah.
So we have a question from the audience.
Nice.
Someone named Caitlin wants to know what your favorite campaign social media post was.
During the campaign. Oh, probably the meme contest that got my parents angry at me. That's definitely my favorite one. So I'm on the bus tour. So during the bus tour, I was largely, the team would come to me with like content about I would either say to them, I want to talk about this, and I'd give them something to put out everywhere because I didn't even have time to do it myself. It was that crazy. Or they would say, hey, we need a hot take on something, and either they would write something up and I'd change it a little bit and then they put it out, or I would write something up and they'd do whatever and put it out. But then they'd have other stuff that didn't really need my signing off, like, a meme contest or come see me at such and such. Like, it didn't need me to be like, yes, this is okay. It was just to drive attention. And people on the bus would put up random videos of me trying to moonwalk and stuff on Instagram and things like that. And so it's a very interesting campaign. But so the meme contest happened sometime in August, actually around this time last year. And so the meme contest, it was right after I was in Cincinnati, and I held up a sign. I forget what the sign even said originally. I wonder if Caitlin remembers, but because she was there, but it said something. But what they did was they blocked that out, whatever the thing said that I was holding up, and they said meme contest. What is the message that Spike's holding? And I forget what even won, but you put a politician with holding up a freaking, blank sign, you're going to get all sorts of stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there was some rough stuff that got put out there. And I mean, most of it I found funny, but so I get a call from my mother. Actually, I get a call from my wife saying, you need to call your mom. She's very upset about the contest. And I'm like, it said not left, not right, just free. Oh yeah, and then it said a lot of other things after that. So my wife calls me because this is before she joined me on the bus tour, and she's like, you need to call your mother. She's very angry at you. And I'm like, or she's very disappointed or something. And I'm like, for what? She's like, the contest. I'm like, what contest? I didn't even know about this meme contest. So I call my mother, and she's like, there are some horrid pictures of you holding up a sign that say some of the worst things, and you need to take them down. your father and I are very upset. Your father is, I spoke with him at length and he is not happy. And I'm like, what? And so I think it was Caitlin I contacted and I'm like, what's going on? She's like, oh, there's a meme contest. We do whatever. And I'm like, are we posting this stuff? She's like, no, it's in the comments. And people are posting it on their own IG and on their Twitter and stuff. So I call my mother back and I go, listen, this is the internet. It's a meme contest. We're not going to pick any of those as the winner. But it's the internet. And she's like, you need to remove them. I'm like, I can't remove them. It's on the internet. And then she said, tell them to stop. And I'm like, that ensures they won't stop. So I'm trying to walk her through how the internet, like social media culture works. I'm like, if I say, hey folks, this is getting out of hand, you're going to need to stop it. It's going to go to 4chan and it's now going to be me holding up stuff questioning the Holocaust. Like it's going to go, like if I try to say, don't do this, it's going to go on a completely different level. People who have no idea who I even am are going to be putting stuff out there. So I was just like, I just ignored the nonsense. We didn't. I think we hid some comments that on the Facebook post or whatever that were pretty rough. But we just let it ride. And every once in a while, I'll see someone use that, and it's for something whatever. But we wrote it out. Like the hardest stuff was written out. So that's probably my favorite because it actually got my parents angry at me, and it was a reminder. I don't think I'd had a conversation like that with my parents since I was in my late teens or early 20s, where it's like, your father and I are very disappointed and you need to do something about this. And it was like at this point I was 38 and I'm 39 now, but I was 38 and I was having my mother tell me like, we are not happy. We're disappointed. We're angry, but we're mostly disappointed. So that would be my favorite one.
Yeah, that would be interesting to have to get a lecture like that at that age.
While I'm on a bus with my name on it, running for vice president of the United States of America.
Right.
And my mother calls me and says, that meme's unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And also pee isn't stored in the balls. So, write that down. Yeah. So I'd say that was my favorite.
That I must have missed that one.
It was funny. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've talked about this in person, but like I met you on the primary tour in New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire,
and didn't realize that you were the VP nominee that I was talking to. I literally thought that you were just a groupie.
So at that point, I wasn't the nominee yet. I was the proposed. I was Vermin's proposed running mate. Yeah.
Running.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So wait, it was in New Hampshire outside of the Tulsi Gabbard watch party, right? Is that where we met? So were you there when the lady started having convulsions and they had to like bring an ambulance?
Yes.
Okay, so you were there during. Okay, all right. Because I don't remember meeting you, and it's not an insult to you.
Yeah.
I met like 50,000 people that day. That was insane.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. What's that crazy? And it underscores what I talk about, that like, can you imagine if we picked our nominee sooner and then the nominee could go to New Hampshire as the nominee and interact with all those people who are mostly going to be disappointed?
Yeah.
Most of those people at that point were thinking, holy crap, it's going to be Pete Buttigieg is going to be who everyone was calling Boothead Head because Vermin had done that thing where he's like, Pete Buttigieg, stop using my name Boothead, or Pete Boothead Head, stop using my name Boothead Head. And that became like people were chanting Boothead Head. But at that point, people thought it was going to be Pete Buttigieg. Now, Bernie Sanders won that primary, but that was expected to happen. But Pete Buttigieg came in second, and Tulsi lost big, and Andrew Yang
dropped out.
Yang dropped out. We were actually there when he dropped out. We actually left the Tulsi event as she was getting there. That was funny. As she was getting there to go and console the Yang gangers. Imagine if our nominee had been there. But yeah, we met outside there when the lady started whatever happened there, seizing or whatever. And I was out there with I was there with Lord Buckethead and Vermin Supreme.
that was a trip. I'm just like standing outside of an event that I like helped plan and am on like the national team for, and like am an important person in that room, like for the first time in my life.
Right.
And I'm standing outside with a dude with a boot on his head, a full suit of armor, and a horse on a stick, smoking weed, just chilling.
Just hanging out like you would do in Manchester. Like,
right.
Welcome to Manchester.
I mean, yeah, there really isn't anything else to do in Manchester.
Well, that's the thing. You got to bring your own entertainment, right? Like
Right.
if you're hanging out in Manchester and you're not like a serial alcoholic, then you got to bring.
You'll
your
become
own fun.
one.
You'll become. Yeah, no, you will definitely. If the cold doesn't do it, the boredom will. But you'll become one, right? Like you have to bring your own fun. That's what I did. I had a head on the stick.
Yeah, I was there for almost 4 months.
Really?
For Tulsi's campaign. Yeah, I moved there in November. So yeah, like 3.5, almost 4 months. I lived in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Wow.
I actually it started to grow on me a little bit. It was weird. Well, because it's fairly similar to where I grew up. Like I'm from Syracuse, New York, which is a similarly industrial city kind of run down. It's about the same size, so very cold.
Rust Belt cold.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But so Manchester is kind of like a Syracuse where there isn't a seatbelt law or income tax. So I kind of dig it.
That is, but the growing on you phase is actually seasonal depression.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so fucking cold, and I had been living in New York City for a while, so I had not purchased the necessary winter clothing in multiple years. I lived in New York City for 4 years, and it just you don't get to like boots and like a thick winter coat level in New York City because you're into the subway quickly or whatever. So
yeah, you're not outside
a suit
long
plus
enough.
an overcoat is fine. Like that's like 3 layers and you're fine. So I'm out here like knocking doors in rural New Hampshire in December in a fucking like suit with just like a wool like overcoat and like maybe a sweater between the shirt and the suit jacket to like try to layer up as much as I could in dress shoes, not boots, in dress shoes.
Wow.
Walking through the snow in rural New Hampshire.
So I came to the New Hampshire primaries from South Carolina, from Myrtle Beach. It was 60 degrees when I left here. And I I stopped in New York first to meet Deborah Altman, who was the first and only Libertarian elected official in New York City. She was on the city council and or the
school board,
the school board, yeah, the city school board, the city school council or whatever it was called. And so I went and hung out with her for a day in New York, and I was already cold there, and I thought, it's not snowing here. It's snowing in New Hampshire. And I have family in Vermont and New Hampshire and Maine. I know that area and Massachusetts. I know that whole that whole New England area. It's a different kind of cold. And I was going there in February, pretty much the coldest time of year. And so I had my coldest clothes. When I got there, my brother's like, yeah, no, this is not going to work. You're going to have, he lives up there and he's like, yeah, you're going to need these gloves instead of these gloves. And you're going to need these socks instead of these socks. So even still, I was actually well dressed for the cold, but I'm not from there. And so my feet and legs did routinely get numb, and I would have to come back in and warm up enough that I could feel them again and then go back out. And if I had been doing anything other than, campaigning, I would have been like, this is too cold. I'm leaving. Yeah. It was brutal. It was brutal. So I will say, if you find out that I purchased, like the powered heated thermal clothing, like the really expensive, winter wear that has the built-in heaters, dude, I'm running for president, because that means that I intend to go to Iowa and New Hampshire and during their primaries and, pound the pavement there.
Good to know.
And
I will have someone monitor your Amazon account.
Yeah. Watch my Amazon wish list, and if I end up purchasing that, or if I get hair plugs, those are the two things. Because I don't really like. I don't care how my hair looks, obviously, and I'm. It is what it is, right? Like I do a little thing here, and it's whatever. Like I don't care, and I have a very Ashkenazi Jewish hairline. I'm losing it here. I'm losing it in the back. I don't wear a yarmulke. At this point, I'd be pandering if I did. And it's what it is. And so I and I'm cool with it. Like it is what it is. But when I was campaigning, man, did I get a lot of crap about my hair. You're losing your hair in the back. Oh, really? No, I didn't know that. Thank you for noticing that for me and telling me and everyone else. If only to shut people up if I ran for president or if I ran for a big office, I would get hair plugs. I'm not going to do it otherwise. So if I get hair plugs or if you see me buying like, the powered heated wear, then know that I'm serious about running. It's
All
not
right.
just an exploratory committee. I'm going to run. Just
All right.
know that.
We will definitely be watching for that.
Okay, good.
So we talked about like how you coalition built within the party to get the nomination, getting the endorsement of like a lot of the big caucuses. Then you went on in the actual general race to get some endorsements that are unusual, including like BLM 757 and a couple of like we got a lot more like local newspaper endorsements than normal. We got you guys picked up a decent amount of endorsements, but especially I want to talk about 757. Tell everybody a little bit about how that happened, and then maybe some other key endorsements.
So Black Lives Matter 757 is they're based in Virginia Beach. That's what 757's the area code, or one of the area codes there in Virginia Beach, in the Newport News area, which is like Virginia Beach, or the Hampton Roads area, which is Virginia Beach, Newport News, Norfolk, like that whole coastal area of Virginia. And I really just went in and kind of sealed the deal. That heavy lifting was already being done by a local Boog Boys group that was making inroads with BLM 757 and with and I'm not sure who reached out to Maj Touré's group, Black Guns Matter, but they basically just asked me if I could come and speak at an event they had set up. And it was them. It was BLM 757, the Boog Boys, Black Guns Matter. Maj wasn't able to be there, but his group was there. And the Black Panthers and the Huey P. Newton Gun Club. And they asked me, can you come and speak at our event? I'm like, yes, definitely. And so I went there with a very concise message, which is, if we're going to say, so, a big phrase in the Black Lives Matter movement is all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. Well, yeah, that intuitively makes sense. If you can't say that this group's life matters, individuals that are in this group's life matter, then you can't say everyone's life matters, because if for no other reason than their life doesn't matter, then everyone else does. So, I mean, it's sort of an axiom, right? And now let's go a little bit further. Can you say that a Black person's life matters if they themselves don't believe it? Can you say that a Black person's life matters if they aren't able to defend their life? And so I literally went there and just said, listen, gun rights is not just about, I can shoot guns if I want to, or I can, do target practice. Gun rights are about the ability at its core to be able to defend yourselves. And, this is in the midst of, protests and riots happening across the country over the George Floyd murder and the Breonna Taylor murder, and just the general discontent over police brutality in general and mistreatment of people of color in the criminal justice system. And so I go there and I'm like, all right, we're in the middle. The event was in the middle, the dead center of the government in the state capital, Richmond. And we're standing between I always forget if it's the governor's mansion or the congressional building, the Capitol building, and the Supreme Court. I actually stood on the steps of the Supreme Court to give my speech and talk with people and do Q&A. And we're in the middle of government. And I'm talking about police brutality. And I stopped and I said, do you see any police officers around here? And we couldn't. And so after the event, we went around and played Spot the Cop, and we finally found one like 4 blocks away down the bottom of the hill, behind their cruisers looking like this. And it was because there was like 100 plus armed people there. Now, here we've been told that, and I said this, here we've been told, well, black people can't protest because they get, brutalized. They get, kettled in, they get tear gassed, pepper sprayed, and rounded up.
Mhm.
That's not happening here. They're not even anywhere near you because no one brings tear gas to a gunfight. So they don't have to like that you have guns, but they're certainly respecting it.
Mhm.
And they're certainly giving you the distance to be able to talk about this stuff. And so on the strength of that conversation and on the spot, we got the endorsement from BLM 757. That has continued to this day. Jafari, who's the head of BLM 757, he recently referred to me as the greatest rapper of all time.
I saw that.
And it's not true. But I'm not a rapper. I'm more like a Damon Dash type.
It's a fire mixtape, though.
It's a great mixtape. I'm more of I just say truthful things, but I can't. I'm not going to rhyme to a beat very well. My name is Spike Cohen, and I'm here to say, if you cross the street, you best look both ways.
You look so proud. Just
I did it. I rapped, everyone.
Oh my god.
That's
going to be the clip for the promo for sure.
That's the clip. That's it right there. And then me going, I did it. I rapped. And this part too, of course. There's your clip.
So yeah, I was finally actually paying attention to the campaign by the time that happened, because I checked out of the LP, not from the party, but just from like the presidential race after like coming off of the Tulsi Gabbard campaign. I got a little bit spoiled. Like that was a like really broke, fairly dysfunctional, like typical anti-establishment campaign. It looked kind of like a libertarian campaign, but it was still like so much more put together than anything that I had worked on. And she as a candidate was just, I never had to worry about like if she was going to say something dumb. I like, right. She was almost the ideal candidate, and the at least like higher level campaign team was all really strong. We were a fucking family, like especially like we all lived in the same house in New Hampshire for 4 months. Like we got really close. And so after she dropped out and we were going through the nomination process, I was Team Amash there for a minute, and then when he dropped out, I was like, all right, fine, y'all can do whatever the fuck you want, and I will vote for whichever person you pick, which actually ended up not being true because I was in the middle of moving at the time and wasn't in my state of registration on election day. But I was like, wow. I will vote for whoever.
Why we didn't win?
Yes,
you are why we didn't get 5%, Dave.
Yep, it is all my vote. It's all my fault. Actually, fun fact, if I had been in the state of New York, I could have voted twice on election day.
Oh, because of the multiple ticket thing, or?
No, so in New York, there, for some unknown reason, the New York City Board of Elections is like the only part of the state whose Board of Elections is like fairly separate from the rest of the state. It's really dumb, but sometimes it means that they don't talk to each other correctly. So I was registered both in Brooklyn and in upstate simultaneously for over a year. I had 2 active voter registrations in the same state, and it actually cost me a Libertarian state committee race, because even though I had re-registered as a Libertarian upstate where I was trying to run for the state committee, I was still a registered Democrat in Brooklyn, because I registered Democrat so that I could petition for Tulsi.
So David Fite was an upstate New York Libertarian, but David Feitzenschmidt was a New York City Democrat, which does not, I mean, that kind of name. I mean,
yeah, right.
Of course. New York City and Democrat. It was obvious. If you came up to me and said, "Hi, I'm David Feitzenschmidt," I'd say, "And you're a New York City Democrat," you'd say, "Well, yes, of course."
But yes, of course. But yeah, so the fact that I was still a registered Democrat, even though the Libertarian registration happened long after and much more recently, I lost an election over that shit. because we're Libertarians.
We care about what matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, if I had been in New York, I literally could have voted here and then driven 6 hours into Brooklyn and voted again.
You're why the
I'm why Trump
New York
lost.
Libertarian Party isn't on the ballot. That's why you lost.
Yeah.
That's why you lost, because they went, "Oh, you were registered twice and didn't even vote once." Sad.
Sad.
So and your experience was not uncommon. There was a shocking number of people that when I'd call our donor list from the people that maxed out for Gary Johnson, and I'd say, I'm with the Jorgensen Cohen ticket. They're like, "Oh, what are you running for?" I'm like, "President, vice president." They're like, "I thought that was Justin Amash this time," and I'm like, "No, he dropped out back in April." And a lot of people just kind of checked out, or they heard Amash and they went, "Oh, okay, all right, well, yeah, I guess Amash," and then checked out again, like the people that weren't directly involved, which is what's interesting about the Libertarian Party, and it's why I won it, is because you could win it doing retail sales. Like I could literally contact. It took a long ass time, but I could call hundreds of people and get them on my side, and which is why, and I wanted to show, like, these are the things we have to do. We have to be talking to people directly, building those connections, building coalitions, going out and talking to normies. Like, this is how we do it. And post campaign, I've still been continuing to do that, going around the country and saying, this, and not just saying, but showing, build coalitions, do events with them, push for legislative changes. People that were inspired by my message created For All Tennessee. Two people, Justin Cornett and Josh Eckel, the former chair of the Tennessee Party. They created For All Tennessee, and they are now in their state legislature. They've gotten a ban on no-knock raids. They've gotten a major reform on civil asset forfeiture, where now you get to have a public defender on your civil asset forfeiture case, which means now it doesn't make sense to steal $500 from someone. It's got to be at least several $1,000s to be worth anyone's time. So now they're leaving poor people alone because it's going to cost more for the public defender than what it would cost, what they would get from the money. They got a duty to intervene, which is an officer who doesn't intervene in another officer breaking the law or violating someone's rights will be now committing a felony. Which means now all the activists who are recording these incidents on their camera, they don't just record the officer, they record all the other officers that are just standing there and asking them what their names and badge numbers are and saying, "Hey, officer, I'm seeing a law breaking happening over there. Why aren't you intervening?" Which is your duty. And so, that's two libertarians doing, the work on the grassroots in their state legislatures. And so we're going around the country, not just saying this at state conventions, which I'm doing that as well, but also showing it, doing homelessness outreach events in Tennessee, doing police accountability events in Ohio, and not just events where we show up and talk, but events where we get together and push for legislative changes and then do the work of pushing for that in our cities and counties and states and so forth. And, that's this weekend I'm going to be at the Ohio conference, but then I'm also going to be at the police accountability event in Columbus. Then on Tuesday, I'm going to be at the event in Alabama to raise awareness there and to build a coalition to fight against. It's really the Republicans there in Alabama. They're the Democrat Party really just doesn't exist there in any real way. They're just It's Alabama. And then the following weekend I'll be in Summerville, South Carolina, doing the same thing. Like, this is how we do it. And that was I believe that's why I got the nomination. Was I hustled and I showed people, like, this is what we have to do. I thought that they would take the message and then, pick someone that they knew better, like, Larry or whoever Justin Amash asked for or whatever. And instead they liked it so much coming from me, they picked me. So now you're stuck with me, guys.
Well, it was a good choice.
Sure.
Well, and I have been really encouraged this year by, I mean, you kind of threw some shade earlier, and I'll throw more. The 2020 ticket, like all of the candidates, even like primary candidates, have almost all of them have stuck around.
Yeah.
I saw a video of Lincoln Chafee and Judge Jim Gray speaking on behalf of an elected Libertarian state legislator in Wyoming for cannabis legalization. Like, they're out there doing shit. You're still around. Joe's still around. Amash is still putting in work. There's all of those people that put in work last year are still putting in work this year, and that's something that we really haven't seen in the past.
In the recent past. So this is actually how it used to be. Harry Brown stuck around.
Yeah.
Around until he decided to run for Congress, and then he was a Republican.
Oh.
Hi.
Hey. There we go.
So everyone kind of stuck around until we went into this phase of let's push our nominating schedule back to, like April or May of the year of the election. And that way we can try to get some of the Republican and Democrat losers from their primary or dropouts and get them to join us. And that's how we ended up with Bob Barr. And that's how we ended up with Gary Johnson. And you know what? I have a Gary Johnson I'm actually mostly okay with. Bill Weld was a bridge too far for me. But, Gary Johnson was okay. Bob Barr, why? But all that to say that they didn't stick around because they weren't part of the movement. They came in for a specific purpose, right? And that's fine. But we need to grow this as a movement. And if we recognize that we're not going to win, if 2024, the likelihood of the presidential candidate winning the White House, is it legally possible? Sure. Yes. Is that likely to happen? No, it's not likely to happen. And, I'm not going to say we're going to lose. And if I ran or whoever does run needs to run to win, in 2020, I definitely ran to win. I went to 38 damn states, 37 states, 35 states, whatever I went to. And to combine, Joe and I went to 48 states. And we had all sorts of campaign events. We also only had effectively 4 months to campaign because the in-person convention wasn't until July, which, by the way, while I'm here, I'll go ahead and push it. There is a bylaws amendment that has been drawn up by Tom Arnold and others, inspired by what I and my wife Tasha have been saying, which is that we need to push back to how it used to be, where we're picking our candidate towards the end of the year before. Give the candidate a year to run. Give the delegates a year to lick their wounds over whoever their original pick was not getting it, so that you don't have these people still, weeks later that are still upset that their candidate didn't win. Give them that time to process who the candidate is and see that candidate is, still a good libertarian, especially compared to the Republicans and Democrats. Let that candidate be able to go to the Republican and Democrat primaries across the states and actually get some attention. Let them have time to go to the donors and actually present a plan. Let them have time to put together their branding and everything else. Like, we're not giving them enough time, but we did everything we could. And in the meantime, until we are at a point where we need to win, we need to focus on growing the movement. We need to focus on bringing people into the movement. And there are some that say we need to focus entirely on people that already identify as libertarian but haven't actually joined the party. I think we should certainly be talking to them, but I don't think we need to limit ourselves there. First of all, if you really want to get depressed, according to the data from the data analytics team, the majority of registered libertarians want universal health care, meaning like Medicare for all or government-run health care. So registered libertarian doesn't mean what you may think it means. They registered third party to express discontent with the system. They're not necessarily all libertarians just because they self-selected as libertarian. They're probably more likely to be, but not necessarily. We need to be reaching out to everyone. And we're not going to eventually be able to get to making the cultural changes that then lead to the political changes of us getting 35-40% to be able to win a competitive three-way rate. That's not going to happen by just reaching out to people that are already calling themselves libertarians. We need to reach out to everyone, not by pandering to them, but by just validating their concerns, demonstrating that we understand how we got here, and then presenting the solutions for how we can fix it. If we do that, it works.
Hell yeah. You were talking earlier about politics as retail sales, and I think about it a lot as like, hot leads versus like cold leads, or just like basic marketing. You're not going to run a business where the only people that you reach out to are like existing customers and their referrals, and that's it. Like
until you are very well established.
Right.
Yes, you are correct. And even then, you're always wanting to get to go out to cold leads.
You're still going to contact like people that are looking for your product but have no idea who you are. And then you're also going to contact people that don't even know that they want your product, but you're going to try to implant in their brain that they need your product and then try to sell to them. And while you're doing that, you're not ignoring your existing customers or their referrals. And you're still making sure to capitalize on the referrals as quickly and as sufficiently as possible. Because I think that's another false dichotomy that we have in the movement is people will hear what you're saying and they'll be like, oh, we can't abandon the, like they'll act like that means we can't reach out to those small L libertarians. And obviously it would be moronic for us to ignore that group of people.
Absolutely. Especially since this is not just a strict sales model of you buy this, thank you, you're now a customer. This is more like multi-level marketing. We're trying to build a downline of people who are going to go out and also try to get people. So of course we're going to reach out to everyone we can, including those that are already our qualified leads who we can bring in. But these things are mutually inclusive. We're not going to be. Do you know why many people that are libertarians don't stay in the Libertarian Party or don't join us? Because we don't win. We don't grow. We bring them in. They go, yeah, we all agree on this. Let's end all this shit. Now what? Yes. We're gonna express more discontent. Yes, I'm discontented with the current system. I requested the exact opposite of what's currently happening. I'm not happy. Yes. Now what? We are not. We're gonna protest. I'm gonna protest what's happening out here. Fantastic. Wait, who's getting elected? We're not getting a lot of people elected. We get some elections, but we're not really growing. We're going to need your help though. And then they leave. Like people want to see that let's use my nomination as sort of a case study. Okay. No one knew who I was in the party. I had been podcasting where my main focus was on like reaching normies with an entertaining show and bringing them into libertarianism. So some people knew me in the liberty movement, but I wasn't well known in the party, right? Like even after I got the nomination, people were like, who the hell is Fite Cohen, right? Yeah. And so this, I mean, even to this day, there's still people in the movement that are like, who? And I mean, it's because no one knew who I was. And the reason I was able to win was because I immediately went to work building coalitions, talking directly to people who were against me and bringing them, at least getting them agreeable to understanding that I was coming from the right place. Even if I still wasn't their top pick, they at least were comfortable with me now. I became a lot of people's second pick, right? I went out and reached people that never heard of our message, and I showed the people that were already here, like you said, our qualified people, hey, look what I'm doing. And not just look what I'm doing, I'm so great, you should vote for me, but look what I'm doing. We can all be doing this. Because right now, I'm not even the nominee. When I was doing a lot of that stuff last year, I wasn't even the nominee. Yeah. No one knew who the hell I was, but I was still going out there and talking to folks. We can all do this, right? So make coalitions, reach out to the people that are either hard-nosed or have no idea who you are. Reach out to just the general audience who's not even that interested in politics, but because everyone is interested in what's happening in life right now. There's no one who doesn't have an opinion about the pandemic. There's no one that doesn't have an opinion about healthcare. There's no one that doesn't have an opinion, even if the opinion is, I don't like how things are going. Great. You're already halfway to being a libertarian. You already recognize the current system sucks. Now we can talk about how we can fix it, right? So, this is how we're going to win. And it's going to be a long, tough slog, but it's going to be and this is why I talk about a culture of winning. We can build a culture of winning by showing people that we are making the steps to win. And when we do that, then we get there, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it may not happen in 1 or 2 election cycles, but we've been doing this for 50 years, folks. Like, how about 50 years from now, we're actually winning or sooner? Like, we already know the way that we had been doing it wasn't working, right? So let's do the things needed to not just get 200 or 300 elected libertarians. Let's get thousands of elected libertarians. Let's focus on the races we can win. Let's get libertarians into those seats. Let's make changes at the local grassroots level. We don't believe in why are we so worried about trickle down liberty? We're going to get one person elected to the White House, and then they're going to just trickle down liberty to everyone else. It doesn't work. It's never going to happen. It's not even what we believe. Stop with the strongman nonsense. There is not one person who's going to lead us all to victory. It's going to be all of us working together at a grassroots level to grow this movement into a viable alternative to the mess that people hate right now.
Hear, hear. Well, that's I don't even want to follow that up. That's a pretty good place to end. Like, I don't even want to try to talk after that. But tell people how to watch your show and when it is, where to find you on social media, and then I've got your website scrolling across the bottom. Tell people why that's important and what they can do.
SpikeCohen.com. You go to that, SpikeCohen.com. So my shows on Tuesday nights at 8 is the Muddy Waters of Freedom, and then on Wednesday nights at 8 is My Fellow Americans. In fact, tonight at 8, my guest is going to be King Randall, who has actually been adopting and fostering children and putting them in a school that he set up. This guy's like 22 or something like that. It's incredible story. And I'm going to have him on. Those are all on Muddied Waters Media. You can see that on all social media platforms, all podcasting platforms, or you can go to muddywatersmedia.com. Join us on Muddy Waters Media on YouTube. Subscribe and then hit the bell. I want your phone to explode with notifications. Also, subscribe and hit the bell for Fight for Liberty if you haven't already. I want your phone to blow up multiple times over the day as we go live. And then me personally, my political pursuits going around helping grow the message, grow the liberty movement. That's you can find Spike Cohen on all social media, pretty much Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, on TikTok for the kids. And SpikeCohen.com. That's where all my media and events are. So if I'm doing an event in your area, feel free to come out. I'd love to meet you, answer any questions you have. And thank you for having me on, Mr. Schmidt. I appreciate that.
It was a pleasure. It's always an honor to get to talk to the founder of the Waffle House Caucus.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
The second largest caucus.
The second largest caucus.
Literally the second largest caucus in the world.
I mean, it really could improve culture if more people treated the Libertarian Party like a Waffle House.
Like a Waffle House, yeah.
I'm just saying.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next week with more stuff. Like Spike said, subscribe, click the notification bell, follow us on everything. Go buy some stuff from Nug of Knowledge. And we'll see you next time. Until then, keep up the fight.